Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started with our second panel for the TRADOC Capability Manager Program Manager discussion. Okay, again, privilege for me to be up here with these great leaders. First, Colonel Greg Fortier is the Program Manager for Cargo, CH-47. Colonel Billy Jackson has Program Manager for Utility, UH60 LUH. Colonel Mark Levine is the TRADOC Capability Manager for Lift. I sandwiched him in between all of that. And then Colonel Steve Clark, the Serial Program Manager, now the Program Manager for Future Vertical Lift. And of course, Colonel Ramsey Bentley, who's been doing an incredible job for how many years now? Is the TICM for, I mean, it's been a long time, is the TICM for FVL. Same kind of structures last time. We'll have a hard stop in about 55 minutes. But again, I've just asked them to kind of talk about their areas of responsibility, what's important, what's going on, some of their challenges. So with that, I'll turn it over to Greg.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Colonel Greg Fortier, honored to be here and speak on behalf of PM Cargo. If you're at the professional sessions this morning, you heard General Gaylor talk about windows of modernization, and we certainly feel like from a cargo perspective, we're in a window of modernization with respect to Block 2. The Block 2 program is really underpinned by three things. That's autonomy first, bridging the gap to supervised autonomy. It's underpinned by the blade, the advanced Chinook rotor blade, and then, of course, underpinned by cost. So currently, Block 2 is 61 days from loading the position 0 at the Boeing factory in terms of beginning assembly of the platform. Platform will be assembled for about 10 months, and then we'll go into flight test about a year from now. So next year, plan on having a few hours under its belt there. Block 2 is really tomorrow's heavy lift readiness when you think about it. You hear a lot about 4,000 pounds of extra lift, but there's other characteristics and capabilities that are also nested nicely within the Center of Excellence, certainly within respective windows of dominance, whether that be a mobile FARP or a fat cow operation. With respect to the rotor blade, we've done it exactly how we should do it, frankly. We prototyped it back in 2016, flew it for about 55 hours, learned a bunch of lessons from that, spent the last 8 to 10 months in redesign and modification, and we're getting ready to fly it again this fall, so that'll all come together. And then lastly, with respect to autonomy, a joint venture with our Canadian partners in our Worldwide Operators Workshop, where they are pursuing a means and methods to autonomously, remotely fly first a CH-146 and then a CH-147, so that when we finish the Block 2 program in FY21, we are informed on what that really means as we move forward. With respect to delivery, we're in a unique spot. You heard Tal Shepard, previous to me, talk about design, develop, and deliver. Our office at this time in our history, we're designing, we're developing, but we're also delivering. So currently 413 aircraft delivered, CH-47F Block 1s, 3 combat aviation brigades remaining, and that's Alaska, Hawaii, and Korea, as well as Honduras, and then we'll be wrapping up in FY20. So a unique opportunity, unique time. With all that said, though, the funding levels of PM Cargo are not what they used to be relative to the last 15 years because we are at the end of production and we are in development. Last but not least, before I turn it over to Billy, every day we focus on what General Todd speaks of, the ILITs, his survivability, affordability, reliability, and producibility. So with that short intro, I look forward to your questions. Over to Billy.
Good afternoon, Colonel Billy Jackson. I have the honor of leading the Utility Helicopter Project Office. So for those of you who don't know, we manage all mission design series for Black Hawk helicopters, to include the Lakota helicopter on the Black Hawk side, Alpha Lima Mike, and our latest development effort, the Victor helicopter. So to really kind of round out, so we're really in the sustainment of the Lima aircraft and the Alpha aircraft. We're working with our CCAD partners at AMCOM to recapitalize Lima aircraft back to the fleet. And the development effort for UH60 Victor really is leveraging that existing fleet and a conversion of that particular platform into a digitized Lima aircraft called the UH60 Victor. To speak to that program, we're currently in the development. We have 140 hours on 2 platforms at Redstone Test Center. The flight test is going extremely well. The program is on track. We go to a limited user test this summer that will inform a low-rate initial production for Victor, and then a follow-on test in the summer of 19 for IOT&E, which will inform a full-rate production for Victor. Combination of our fleet, Army AO 2135, 1375 Mike models, and the balance of that 760 will be UH60 Victors. Partnered with CCAD to do that conversion. Right now in the POM, slow, low-rate initial production, building up to 48 aircraft per year. Unfortunately, it's going to take us about 15 years to do all 760 aircraft. We're looking for opportunities to speed the velocity there and looking for funding opportunities. The goal would be to modernize the UH60 fleet in a timely manner and give all compos similar capability in terms of the Black Hawk helicopter. On the Lakota side, we're recently gone beyond a legal challenge we've had. We've gone back into production for Lakota to meet the Army's AO of 462. Those will be on contract shortly. Good news for the Army to meet our requirements not only at Fort Rucker for training helicopters, but also at the CTCs, which also need to replace their OH-58 Charlie aircraft with an upgraded light utility helicopter. On the Mike side, we're continuing the production. We are currently in the second year of our multi-year 9 contract, and that program is going extremely well, trying to get to 1375. Currently, based on funding profiles, we would expect to be finished with Mike production somewhere between 27 and 29. That's all I have. I'll pass this forward.
All right, are we hot? So Colonel Mark Levine, Trade-Out Capability Manager, Lift. So requirements, capability development with the team of PMs on everything in the Lift fleet. So Lakotas, Chinooks, Blackhawks, fixed wing. It's all in the name. What we do and what we need to do is all in the name. So it's lift, it's payload. That's the #1 priority we have. That's what we provide to the warfighter. We generally talk about the combat configurations, and that's critical to what we do. But I'd like to add that in the last 12 months, that payload has provided a unique response to our nation for the series of disasters, natural disasters we had in the last year. And every aircraft in that portfolio, the fixed wing, the transport movement, the Lakota doing hoist rescues in a medevac configuration, the Chinook doing the heavy lift and rescues. So in the last 12 months, we really stressed the limits of the airplane, showing what we can do, not just for the warfighter, but to improve public safety here in the United States and at home. So it's a great team. There's always trying times. There's always challenges. We're always looking for a way to go faster to field the capability of the warfighter. But if it's payload-related weight reduction, you've got our attention, and then we got to work on the funding to get there. So it's a good team with good products out there to the warfighter. And again, honored to be here. Look forward to your questions.
We'll swap around. Good afternoon, everyone. Now, this one is definitely working. Colonel Steve Clark, PM for Future Vertical Lift. I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity today to address some of the programmatic priorities and focus areas from a program manager's perspective. I'll use a simple rubric of tell you what I know, what I don't know, what I would like to expect or request from industry, and then what you can expect from us as a program office moving forward. So Future Vertical Lift remains a family of systems where we're looking at next generation vertical lift capabilities that can fight and win in a multi-domain battle of the future. CAPESAT 3 remains a funded profile program. We're a pre-major defense acquisition program. We are post-material development decision and deeply in the analysis of alternatives phase, as well as the requirements generation phase that Colonel Bentley will speak to later. Beyond that, remaining CAPESATs, and we're looking at across categories of 3 with light, medium, and heavy, 5 capability sets that further refine those. Much of that remains pre-decisionals, and we are seeking multiple opportunities, identifying through gaps analysis for the Army to move forward. So I will not be able to talk specifics and hard numbers in terms of when we'll release an RFP, the quantities that we'll be looking for, or any type of a targeted cost today. I would offer that please don't confuse that with any lack of progress, as there's been an incredible amount of work across the enterprise moving forward with strong purpose and objectives for future vertical lift. What I would like to offer for industry to consider is to, one, begin with the end in mind. When I sit up here with my fellow platform PMs, the legacy that we'll leave behind with future vertical lift will not only be the capability that we field from a design perspective, but more so will be the sustainability over the life cycle. It has become the norm now as we see aircraft in the field for 50 plus years, at least from a configuration perspective. So that will be strong consideration as we look forward to the total life cycle approach for this program. Beyond that, I would ask you to challenge the illities. You pick one, whether it be survivability, lethality, reliability, put it up on the marker board and figure out how to improve it. Challenge conventional wisdom, find new approaches so that we can come across with a dominant set of capabilities for our warfighters. I would offer that you should focus on the technologies and system improvements that increase lethality and reach without sacrificing maneuverability and survivability. Design in reliability and maintainability from an expeditionary employment and con-op perspective, as well as how can we identify ways to maintain the aircraft at longer distances. Think of that more from an expeditionary and standoff perspectives. Finally, I would offer a new challenge for us is not only the air vehicle. You know, that is something where industry has always really risen to the occasion on, and it is the things that we all dream about doing is designing new aircraft. We're really taking a hard approach to figuring out how do we get to the correct architecture for these aircraft. A very challenging environment for us to be able to integrate weapons, mission equipment, comms, etc. So I don't look at that from a perspective of a desire to eliminate industry lock or vendor lock. That's not really my purpose from a program manager perspective. I'm looking for best value. But what I believe that with a modular open system architecture approach is it enables us to be more proactive and reactive to emerging threats. How can we integrate those in a more expeditious fashion to introduce new capabilities to the field, increase our operational availability, and yes, I do believe we can reduce life cycle costs as well. Finally, with what can you expect from us as a program office? As we move forward, you should anticipate multiple industry days, draft RFPs that should be highly refined drafts. And the reason I convey that is because you should also expect aggressive schedules. So when we do put an RFP on the street, I would say that 90 days is going to be a luxury from the past in terms of being able to respond to that. So we're going to need to work through this as an industry-government partnership to give you as much information up front to help you affect your proposals so that we can move through programs with agility. You should anticipate transparency from our teams across the board. We want to engage you because we know this will only occur if we're in it together from that approach. Multiple working groups. I think we will be enlisting opportunities for industry to provide feedback. I often say that we as the government hold no design patents on the best ideas. We need industry to help us further expand the art of the possible with respect to future vertical lift. So we want the best and the brightest ideas that are achievable within a time frame. With that, I believe you will anticipate an incremental strategy approach. We do not believe that we'll be able to deliver all of the attributes and capabilities in a compressed time frame that meets all criteria. But we do believe over time we can achieve that. So an incremental strategy will be key. And from a design perspective, that means we need to lay in the foundation within these air vehicles to where we can continue to add features and capabilities without major redesigns. So it took a little longer probably than I should have, but wanted to give this opportunity to engage you. I tell you, it's a great honor to be part of this, and really when I look across the government and industry team, given the challenges ahead of us and the ability to affect the next generation of vertical lift for our future warfighters, many of which will either be our sons, daughters, or grandchildren, is really a pivotal time, and one that I look forward to advancing with you and our team. So thank you very much.
There you go. So magic wand. All right. Hey, good afternoon. Colonel Ramsey Bentley, TRADOC Capability Manager for Future Vertical Lift. The requirements team obviously is in charge with development of future vertical lift concepts and also development of requirements for the family of systems. Would also like to include that involves future UAS or advanced UAS operations also. Really what we're looking at as we look at a future peer and near-peer threat capability is how do we counter that? And we must be able to achieve overmatch and sustain dominance against that future threat. As we look at our requirements for the family of systems, we're focused really on 3 areas right now. Number one is what is known as CAPESET 1. For the Army, that's the Future Attack Reconnaissance Aircraft. Also, advanced UAS capability, which includes advanced teaming capability with FVL. And then also for the Army, the long-range assault aircraft, or CAPESET 3 is commonly known within the family of systems. And really how these 3 systems work together in that A2AD environment to achieve that dominance and sustain overmatch. As we look at developing our requirements, as Colonel Clark mentioned, we're looking at the entities also, and we're recording those in our base documents as future requirements. FVL must be able to operate in austere environments, conduct forcible entry operations with little or no sustainment support for a period of time. So as we look at increasing our maintenance operation, our maintenance-free periods, the ability of the aircraft to self-diagnose or conduct self-diagnosis, and also our ability to let that aircraft go for longer distances to increase our reach and our lethality. Some additional things that we're looking at, as Colonel Clark mentioned, is the incremental approach to development of the aircraft. We need to fill this capability as soon as possible. However, we want to go forward with an approach where we know we're going to increase the capability. So it's important that we get the platform correct. We know we're not going to change physics probably in the next 20 or 30 years. So the actual platform attributes that give us reach and capabilities, and then later we can update those capabilities through modular open systems approach, the difference of additional sensors and weapons and things like that is what we need to do. So once again, the platform requirements are the most critical to get correct now, and then through a modular open systems approach, be able to add additional capabilities in the future. As far as the survivability of the platform, maintainability, sustainability, all of that follows the same approach to where we get it right, and then we're able to add additional capabilities in the future. As we look at the ability of FVL aircraft to conduct advanced teaming, we look at advanced UAS aircraft for supervised autonomy capability. And how do we build the FVL family of systems as an ecosystem where you're not only looking at a single capability on a single platform, but it's more of a sum of the parts versus the sum of the whole capability. So, but heavily involved right now supporting the capability set 3 analysis of alternatives, developing both concepts and requirement for the CAPESET 1 aircraft, along with also the advanced UAS aircraft as part of the family of systems. Look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, leaders. So the moderator's privileged up. Good. Sir, was your question addressed by Colonel Bentley and Colonel Clark? Okay.
Hi, James Drew from Aviation Week. I wanted to ask the panel about the potential for a capability set 1 aircraft. I noticed that from some of the industry teams, they're spending a little bit more time emphasizing the S-97 radar and a new compound helicopter that Bell's been working on. And so could you address where the Army is in thinking about that capability set for like an armed aerial scout? And how does this new future unmanned combat system fit into your portfolios and the future vertical lift effort that just emerged in the FY19 budget?
So I think I got most of that. So we're still conducting the gap analysis and refinement for CapeSat 1 capabilities. As discussed, we see CapeSat 1 conducting advanced teaming operations with future UAS capabilities. So in addition to the capabilities of what we see on what is the future Army attack reconnaissance platform, CapeSat 1, we're looking at what is the correct mix of capabilities that reside in manned platforms and then unmanned advanced UAS platforms, and how we get a increase the capability between those two. So really, when you look at a CapeSat 1 platform and advanced UAS, that kind of forms the centerpiece of our ability to breach an A2AD type environment. In addition to the ability to detect, identify, locate, and then report threat systems, it's also the ability to bring a non-kinetic and also a kinetic strike capability upon those threat systems. Whether or not we choose to conduct non-kinetic attacks to enable a kinetic attack, or if we choose to mitigate a threats capability through non-kinetic means, that will be left up to the decision of the teaming as far as what is the best way to prosecute those targets.
I can pick up just a little bit on where future UAS fits within the portfolio. So from a cross-functional team perspective, certainly future vertical lift with General Rugen influences certainly the future vertical lift, CapeSat 1 through 5, as well as future UAS. From a programmatic perspective, future UAS will remain under the core competency of PM-UAS with Colonel Courtney Cody and his team. We will not attempt to replicate the existing core competency that he has. We will integrate with his team and work to achieve the desired outcome via that manner.
This question is for Colonel Jackson. You talked about potentially increasing the rate of getting Victor models finished through CCAD. What are some of the options on the table for actually increasing the rate of production on those?
Yes, ma'am. There's currently no funded options for that. This is a concept. So we've pushed quite a few 88L recaps through CCAD over the last 4 or 5 years. Those aircraft would be at the tail end of the 60V conversion. What I would like to do, I'm very interested in doing to increase the velocity, would be garner the non-recurring engineering funding associated with adjusting the drawings for that, find a facility outside of CCAD, compete that, and allow them to come in and do a heavy mod to the aircraft, right? So those aircraft have already been recapitalized, the money's already been spent, they're good aircraft, good reliability. We'd like to go ahead and leverage those aircraft as early as possible to do that. Like I said, this is an idea, and I think it's very important. It's going to relate it on funding available to do that.
John Quackenbush from JH&A. Can you all hear me okay? They had problems earlier. So both these panels have talked a lot about modular open system approaches, and that's been a theme I've heard today. With FEL, where do you see the boundary between what the architecture that the government owns and the designs that the OEMs own? And do you see a kind of a paradigm shift that's going to be setting a new approach with contracts in that regard?
It's a great question. I'll attempt, and Ramsey can probably fill in more from a requirements perspective. I think it's a great topic that requires healthy discussions between industry and government. Because in my mind, it's an open field. And my approach would be, I'm interested in making the correct decisions from an architecture of what the government needs to own or not. In some cases, it would be cost prohibitive for me to own all of the architecture. And if I'm only going to touch a piece of the architecture once every 10 years, should I really pay for that amount of data rights, et cetera, or specify that? So I'm looking forward to multiple engagements with industry to better cooperatively work together to figure out what is the optimal architecture that enables us to achieve our goals of rapidly integrating capabilities that are not resident within just one vendor or OEM, yet also making a value-based decision as well on what can we afford. So it's a great question. I really think we need to explore that space more.
And so to add to what Colonel Clark said, really from the requirements viewpoint, we are looking for the capability to rapidly upgrade the airframe. And we want to do this in response to increased capabilities, but also in response to threat capabilities. As far as government ownership of architecture, I think that's the discussion that what is the right level of ownership to describe the standards of the architecture. But then I think we need to have the discussion with the industry to see where the industry tells us, or industry is able to inform us of what is the best solution for both the government and industry. So we're looking forward to those discussions. But really it's about the ability to upgrade the aircraft rapidly in the future at the best value to the government.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Sergeant First Class Whiff, 1-6 Cav out of Fort Riley. I am a Shadow Platoon Sergeant, but specifically I wanted to speak about the UAS side. Two questions. One, has the question about missile defense for UAS, for future UAS and advanced UAS been brought up? We talk about with my Apache counterparts talking about, oh, you guys are the first ones out there to kind of recon everything. Oh, but you're going to get shot down, within 5 seconds of the engagement. Okay. Advanced, has that been addressed? Because they're not, UAS is unmanned, but it's not necessarily entirely disposable. Second question is, I've heard rumblings, and it was brought up before about an experimental BCT UAS that was being considered. Does that fall under your purview? And if so, what does it look like?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If you're looking for a midday snack, head to the Quad Bring your box to the Federal Pilots Booth 7 for a free T-shirt. Also, we have several items for lost and found. You'll find these items at the security desk outside the Wyman B entrance to the exhibit area until 5 p.m. We have pen sunglasses, an iPhone, and an iPad. Again, this is at the security desk outside the Wyman B entrance.
I wouldn't dare interrupt Joe Pisano when he's making an announcement about midday snacks with some question about ASE for UAS.
I'd asked Joe to give me the hook at the appropriate time. I didn't know it would come in the form of that. A little bit, maybe if I can address on missile defense and UASs. Certainly, we are fully involved in trying to better understand the threat domain a lot of analysis coming out of Track, Leavenworth, to support that, to figure out what are the correct attributes, what are the desired effects we want advanced UAS to project, as well as how we protect that and make it more survivable. I would offer, though, that I see it as a mix. I think there is the potential for disposable UASs or attritable. And maybe that is for the highly contested portion of what we need to execute, and just recognizing that the juice isn't worth the squeeze, quoting General Mangum from years ago with that motto, for being able to protect in that environment. So I would say it depends is a decent answer. We certainly agree with you that it has to be considered and addressed. But again, to me, it's a balanced portfolio perspective. Multiple air vehicles, multiple attributes on and off board those vehicles, as Colonel Bentley was saying. As far as the BCT, I'll defer to you.
So to the BCT, we currently have a few operational needs statements that we are currently looking at, and the intent there would be to field some capabilities to answer the operational needs statements as part of a larger campaign of learning for advanced UAS and future UAS development. The intent there is to look at runway independent systems, point takeoff and landing capabilities, and then also look at the expanded role of UAS that we could do with advanced teaming. So the idea is, how do we take one operator that could access multiple different capabilities on possibly multiple UAS platforms, and not only how do those platforms go out to conduct surveillance, but the other missions that we could use for those platforms.
Are there any other questions for the panel?
I was just curious, with a lot of the upgrades with the various aircraft, the specs always seem to come across as a mil spec. However, there's the civilian DO-160 environmental qualifications. Has there been any consideration to a mil spec or a civilian equivalent specification so that we can access commercial off-the-shelf products for a lot of the aircraft?
Yeah, how about that? What's worse, the guy announcing free popcorn or me screaming in the microphone? So, great question. I think you can address that specifically with the Block 2 program, where we're going into flight test again for a concerted effort, whether it be a component testing or subsystem test, and then full qual. Address that as at the best value proposition from there, and assess it from there. I can tell you from our perspective, because affordability and cost is so important when we get to the Milestone C decision in FY21, as well as the pace of the program that needs to be processed, we're looking very closely at both of those options. So, but I know I see some folks from AED here and other agencies. I'd encourage you to reach out and talk to them in terms of what they will accept and what they won't accept, because at the end of the day, we're serving that airworthiness qualification plan that's in concert with our Airworthiness Engineering Directorate.
James Drew from Aviation Week. I had a second question for the cargo guys. This morning, the director of the Air National Guard said they want to be part of the Block 2 Chinook program, and that they want to adopt some of those helicopters when they finally deliver. Where does the Guard fit in the current program? I understand there was like 540 or something being procured. So where do they fit? Are they going to get some of these birds, or what's happening?
So the Chinook program, Block 2 program, is modeled exactly after the Block 1 program from the standpoint of 542 aircraft, 69 of which are special operations MH-47Gs, and the remaining 473 are CH-47F Block 2s. DAMO AV, our higher headquarters Department of the Army 357, sets the fielding plan. Right now there is no current fielding plan for the Block 2, other than to say that we need to get to Milestone C in FY21. reach an affordability decision, and then if we enter low-rate initial production, and then additionally a full-rate production decision, they will direct accordingly on where the guard fits, Compo 1, Compo 2, and Compo 3 accordingly. So that's forthcoming. That's probably 3 to 5 years out on that decision. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
He asked, are they part of the plan? And of course they are. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I would tell you that those are decisions above my pay grade. I design, develop, and deliver the CH-47F Block 2. And folks in Demo AV and the National Guard will have those discussions to see where the force structure works itself out.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I just want to personally thank the leaders here for all your great work and for taking the time to let everyone know what's going on. So again, thanks so much. Thank you for your attendance today. You got another great panel coming up on training and simulation, I think. But anyway, hope to see a lot of you this evening at the Quad A Hall of Fame induction dinner and ceremony. Thank you very much.